Hello. So we have Mark Stay here, one of the finalist judges for the writing tournament. Hello, Mark.
How are you, sir? How's it going?
Yes, very well, thank you. Very well. Lovely to see you. Mark's done worked in theatre, film, written novels, indie and traditional. He's done all sorts. So we're going to be finding out all about that today. Um, so without further ado, for the audience, let's get started. If you like.
Let's go for it.
All right. So question number one. So Mark, one of your first writing gigs was writing for a theatre which you owned. So what tips would you give young writers wishing to write plays and stage productions?
Well, I didn't own the theatre. I owned a theatre company. That's a very different thing. We used to put on plays at my local theatre, the Epsom Playhouse, which was, and not even the big stage. We were in a little studio stage. I think it was. I've always been writing. I've always written since I was a kid, but I wanted to be an actor, dear boy. And I got into drama school. My wife got into drama school. She got the grant. That's how old we are.
What?
And the grant, yeah. People used to be given money to go to college instead of, begging, getting a terrible loan with terrible interest rates from the government, at least in the UK. So yeah, I was working at Waterstones at the time, and I said, well, look, you go to drama school because drama students will probably drive me potty, and tell me everything you learn, and I'll continue working at Waterstones, which I did, and I really enjoyed. But while we were doing that, we were also putting on plays, and we started out doing other people's plays. And I wanted to do a Johnny Spate play, who was the guy who wrote the Afghanistan stuff from Till Death Do Us Part. But he also wrote little one-act plays. He'd done a TV play that I really wanted to do. And then he died, and I think the family withdrew all the rights. So I couldn't get the rights to the play. So I had a venue booked, but no play. And so I decided to write a play in about 8 weeks, stage, write and stage and rehearse the thing. And it went down really well. It was based on all the terrible camping trips I've been on camping holidays I've been on with my family when I was a child. It was sort of therapy, if nothing else. And a friend of mine said to me, look, there's too many actors, but not enough writers. Keep writing. I think that was his way of telling me I was a terrible actor. And that was, I can tell you, because Claire, the character Claire played in the play, was pregnant with our first child. So I can tell you that was 21 years ago, 21 and a half years ago. So that's when I started taking writing really, really seriously. And but it was great fun. You learn so much by doing theatre, by putting your plays on in front of an audience. It's relatively inexpensive. At least it used to be anyway. I mean, if you can find a community theatre spot to put on a show, if you've got a couple of actor friends and you've got someone who can do the lighting and the sound, then you can probably put on a play for a couple of £100. And we always figured out how many tickets we would need to sell to make that money back. And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't, you didn't have to fill the place up, which is just as well. So yeah, we did that for a few years and really, really enjoyed it. And just being on stage, you get a vibe, or even backstage, you get a vibe from the audience of what's working and what isn't working. You know immediately if something's funny or thrilling, or the audiences, you just get that vibe from being in the room with them. And also just working with actors. I mean, my wife would be the first one to go, this dialogue isn't any good. This doesn't make any sense. But one of the best bits of feedback I got from an actor, he said to me, why am I always asking questions? And that made me realize the character was completely passive. It was just someone going, well, and you learn a lot doing that. Yeah, so if you can find a space and a few friends, and if you're at school anyway, you'll have those facilities. Here's the other thing. If you're studying, if you're at school or a college, you will have a drama studio, you will have lighting, you will have eager people around you, your peers who want to do this stuff. So there will never be a better time to sort of jump in and try it out, and keep it short. Don't try and put on Hamilton in your first play. Just do something short and personal and meaningful, and yeah, go from there.
So how long did it run for? I mean, the show, in terms of beginning to end, rather than
we did two versions. We did a sort of an hour-long version. And then because we had some teenage kids in the show who were brilliant, they were really, really good, I decided to write extra monologues for them so they could do one-on-one monologues. There's little showcases for them, if nothing else. And that was a sort of an hour and a half version, which we staged later in the year. And yeah, they both went down really well. Really enjoyed it.
8 weeks. Okay, you've inspired me to try, which is probably a bad idea. But I will. Sounds pretty exciting actually. So yeah.
Cool.
So have a sip of your tea, and then we'll move into round 2.
Go for
it. Okay. So yes, you co-wrote the screenplay for Robot Overlords, the film, and also wrote the upcoming Warner Brothers film Unwelcome. What tips can you give young writers who would like to write for film and television?
Well, again, I go to my kids' school and my jaw just drops. There are IMAX everywhere. They've all got video. They've all got cameras on their phones, better cameras than we ever had when I was a kid. Editing facilities, you can get a lot of editing facilities. If on an iMac, there's iMovie, there's sound stuff you can use. So you've got movie studios in your school. You have the facilities there, which we never had. I remember the first film I ever worked on was a short film, and we had to go to an industrial estate where there was a big, I think it was a pharmaceutical company, for some reason had their own edit suite. And, so we had to go there to do it. And it was using, 2 video players editing down onto one. It was incredibly complicated. So yeah, you've got the tools now. So again, there's never been a better time for you to make short films, and go for it. Just go for it. As with the theatre, gather together a few friends and start making short movies. Now, the one thing I would say is, if you can shoot a scene between 2 people having a conversation, say over a cup of coffee, right? That's kind of your omelette. Okay, if you're a chef, they say to you, the first thing you should learn how to make an omelette. Okay, because if you can make an omelette, you can make anything. It's the building blocks of cookery. So don't try and reinvent the wheel necessarily on your first go. Just see if you can shoot a scene between 2 people, because you have that cross-cutting. You'll have a camera over one shoulder, a camera over another shoulder, 2 people having a meaningful conversation. Make it 3 minutes long, make it really, really short, and see if you can make that work, because you will learn so much just from putting that together, just from creating a simple scene of 2 people having a meaningful interaction. You don't even have to write it. Take the script from a movie that you like and let them roll with it. Use a bit of Tarantino dialogue or whatever it is, just shoot something between 2 people and then edit that, and you'll see how it all comes together in the edit. And that is the magic of filmmaking. There's a thing called the Kuleshov effect, there was an early Russian filmmaker called Kuleshov, and he was one of the first to discover the power of juxtaposition. That's putting 2 images next to each other to create an effect. And to demonstrate this, he just took an image of a man looking directly at the camera like this. Okay, completely passive face, no emotion, no anything. And it's got him look, and then he would cut to a bowl of soup. And the audience goes, he's hungry. So you put those 2 images together, go, oh, he's hungry. Same expression, cut to a gravestone. Oh, he's mourning. Same expression, cut to a woman. And it's like, oh, he's in love. So you learn about juxtaposition. You learn in the edit how images work next to each other to create a whole new thing. And that's how cinema works. That's the magic of cinema. So yeah, have fun, experiment. And then once you've done your omelette, start making crazy films, start making really weird, outlandish stuff, because this is all about any form of creative expression is about getting your voice out there, getting your voice heard. And I've come from a generation and an industry, publishing and filmmaking, which is very white, it's very middle class. It's all the same people making the same stuff. But now there is now an opportunity for voices from all over the world, from all walks of life, to start making their voice heard. And that's what you need to do. Just be honest, be yourself.
Great advice. Omelets.
Omelets.
Thank you very much. So this one actually is from the Red Lucy podcast. So
Cool.
I'll hand it over to Red Lucy, and she should appear on the screen.
With years of experience, what would your number one writing tip be?
Finish it. Whatever it is you're working on, finish it. You won't believe the number of aspiring authors who start stuff and never finish, because there comes a point in any story, because beginnings are fun. They're relatively easy. They're exciting. Anything is possible. But there comes a point in a story, usually a third of the way through the story, where your protagonist will need to start making decisions that have consequences. And those consequences mean that you need to start making story decisions. That is, you need to start going, okay, well, imagine there's 3 doors in front of you. You need to go that one, or that one. And if you go through that one, then those things are out of the way. And you start thinking, oh gosh, and it starts becoming crippling. You have that critical mind starts stopping you from creating. You start overthinking things. So just plow on, be bold, admit that that your first draft might not be perfect. First drafts rarely are perfect. In fact, mine are almost always rubbish. So I will get to I'm at this point at the moment. Just this morning, I got to about 38,000 words of my new book, and that's roughly the halfway point. And I know that of those 38,000 words, a lot of them are going to need rewriting. A lot of stuff is going to need to be fixed, but I'm not going back and fixing it now. I'm going to go right to the end of this thing, and then I'll have this weird, misshapen, strange thing when I finish my draft, but it will be finished. And it will be this weird sort of wounded, imagine a wounded soldier on a back from the wars, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there are all these wounds. What you do, what I call the edit triage. You look at it, well, I need to fix that first and then fix that. Those things we can wait till later. But at least I have something to fix. Unless you finish and get to the end of a draft, you'll never have anything to fix. So ignore that critical mind. Ignore that critical thinking that's saying to you, oh, this is wrong and that's wrong and that's wrong and that doesn't work, and just keep going. And once you get to the end, then that's the time to fix it.
Well, while we're here, actually, thank you for that. I'll point out Mark's Mark Stay's book, The Crowfolk, which is here, which has just come out and is the first in a series. So take a look at that. That's on all good book websites and shops and through the website. Okay, question number 4, I believe. Okay. I think my producer wrote this one, not me. You are sat on a roller coaster next to a young person who tells you they want to be a writer. You haven't got long. What do you tell them?
Crikey. Okay, so we're on a roller coaster. So I would say to them, right, this moment you're feeling absolutely terrified and thrilled and excited, and you're laughing and you're happy. Those are all emotions. Think about those emotions when you're writing. Think about ways you can elicit those emotions from your reader, because the first draft is for you. That's you getting your voice on the page. Second draft is very much for the reader. And I think people react to things emotionally. I think, if we go to see a movie and it moves us, or we read a book and it moves us in some particular way, then for me, it's a success. If I'm moved by something, then it works.
That's that's very good advice and different to what I expected. So, okay, so moving on to number 5. I'll come back to that one. Producer again. Okay. So, like many young writers, when I was younger, I couldn't even imagine writing the amount of words required to finish a novel. How do you begin to approach this for our young writers?
Day by day, you have to. There's a lot of story to carry at once. Particularly if you're writing a novel, and I think it's one of the reasons we have the 200 words a day challenge on the Bestseller Experiment podcast, because for a lot of people, that's if they've got work or a family, or they're at school, or they're studying or whatever, but they want to write a novel. We say to them, look, try and write every day if you can, because that helps you create a habit that never goes. If you create that habit and you're writing every day, then those 200 words are more likely to become 300 words, 500 words, 1,000 words a day, or whatever. But just start with 200 words a day. carve out a bit of time. That, 200 words is the equivalent of maybe 6 emails, or a dozen texts. So take the time you might have wasted doing those and apply it to your writing. 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. Just try and get 200 words down before you do anything else with your day, or maybe in your lunch break. I used to write my commute and my lunch break when I had a day job. So, and then by doing that every day, you have momentum. You have momentum that you're writing every single day. And with each day, you're biting off another little chunk of that overall word count. So don't worry about the overall work. Don't worry about, try not to think of it as one big amorphous mass, which can be overwhelming. Just think of it as a little bit at a time. We had a brilliant guest on the podcast, Dion Meyer, who's a South African author. And he said there's an old South African adage, which is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's how he writes novels, and it's how I write novels. So yeah, one bite at a time.
Lovely. So violence today, wounded soldiers and eating elephants.
Eating elephants, yeah. Not very eco-friendly, is it? Yeah, don't eat elephants, kids. Yeah, that's a bad idea. It's a metaphor.
But a good one. And I remember the first time, just about this time last year, when the first time I'd ever written 10,000 words. And I remember just looking at the screen thinking, I can't believe I've actually written 10,000 words. And then I started to believe that it was... and the more you write, the more you think you can do it again, I found.
Absolutely. That's the thing. Once you've done it once, once you've finished something, which is the most important thing, you can do it. You think, okay, I've danced this dance before, let's do it again. And it's hard starting from the beginning, writing your second book. You're at the bottom of that mountain again, pushing that boulder uphill. It is hard work. But there's Malcolm Gladwell has the 10,000 hour thing, which is if you work at something for 10,000 hours, anything, he says you become a genius. I don't think that's true. I think you gain some sort of competence at it. Just as a musician will practice their scales every day, just as an artist will sketch every day, at least when they're starting out, they gain some level of competence. You build a habit. So yeah, that for me is the key to it. That unlocks everything.
Oh, lovely. And yeah, there's more at the Bestseller Experiment podcast website and on the podcast about the 200 word a day challenge. If you want to get involved in that, I'll put a link on there too. All right. So moving on to, I've forgotten how many questions we have now, but it's another question.
Yeah, who's counting?
Okay, yes. So you've published books as an indie author, co-written a book and one as an indie author, and also as a traditional author. This one. What are the main differences that you found?
To be honest, those differences are becoming more and more fuzzy with each passing year, because one of the effects of lockdown is you're seeing a lot more traditionally published authors act like indie authors. They're taking the lessons that indie authors have learned about self-promoting, self-publishing, marketing, and they've been applying them to, I think there was, a couple of years ago, the idea of a traditionally published author doing a live book launch on Facebook, they'd have been, oh, no, I'd rather do it at a bookshop, thanks very much. But now they're all doing it, because they have to. So that kind of publicity, marketing, self-promotion side, if you're an indie author, you have to do all that yourself. You have to bang your own drum, which I think a lot of authors are quite shy, retiring types, don't like talking about themselves. They much prefer to express themselves through their writing. And it can be very difficult and awkward to overcome that. And I completely understand that. But more and more authors are doing that now on both sides. In terms of the actual writing, there's really no difference. I would say to you, just write whatever you want to write. We got an interview with Dean Wesley Smith on the podcast next week, who is amazing. He's 70 years old. He grew up in that traditional world, but he's now writing completely independently. And he says that every time he sits down, he has no clue what he's going to write. He just writes and sees where the writing takes him. And that must be incredibly liberating. And I would suggest, if you're young and you're just starting out, do that. Liberate yourself, write whatever the hell you want, because then you're expressing yourself, your true self, your voice. You're putting your voice on the page. You're getting your voice heard and out there. and then you can decide what you want to do with it, because the options are all there now. It used to be very rigid. You have to get an agent, then you have to get a publisher, and then the publisher has to sell it to a retailer, and then the retailer has to sell it to a reader. You can now jump over all of those, go straight to the reader. And that thing of building a relationship with your readers is really important, and understanding who they are, and they can understand who you are, and then they become your cheerleaders. So every time you publish something new, they're the ones going, amazing new book. So that's I would say, if you're just starting out writing, don't worry about the differences, because once you've finished it, then you've got this whole smorgasbord of choices that you can just go, okay, I can go the traditional route. If that's what I want, I can go the independent route. The traditional route will get you bits of publicity. It will get you in bookshops. It will get you perhaps rightly or wrongly, and I would say probably wrongly, a little more kudos than a lot of indie authors. But then indie authors generally make a lot more money. Some of them, not all of them, because they keep more of the money. They don't have to share it with a publisher or an agent. They just keep the money from every sale. So neither is easy. Neither is a magic wand to success. But I think you're going to see a lot more authors like me, hybrid authors, who do a bit of both. So the Crowfolk there is the first of a 3-book deal with Simon & Schuster, and I'm loving it. Simon & Schuster has been absolutely brilliant, great editor, wonderful sales, publicity, marketing teams. We've got great rapport, and it's been a really, really good experience. But there are also stories and books that I don't think will necessarily fit into a genre that publishers will find it easy to sell. So those ones I might self-publish. My second book, The End of Magic, I crowdfunded that with a publisher called Unbound. So, with the publishers like that, and publishers, or Kickstarter rather, you can crowdfund your own books, comic books. Kickstarter's great for comic books. And, write, again, whatever you want, without anyone telling you, oh, the market isn't right for this and blah, but we don't think we can sell it. Obviously, there might be consequences to that. They might be right. You might only sell 12 copies of something, but at least you finished something and got it out there, which is more than 90% of writers actually ever do.
That's great. And just in terms of, well, I don't know why it occurred to me, but the Crowfolk, I believe I've read 3/4 of it, and it's great. I will be finishing it soon, but I think that's suitable for anyone sort of 12, 13 up. I don't think there's anything particularly.
Yeah, I'd say that. A friend of mine, his 11-year-old daughter read it and did a school report, and which made me very proud. School report, and she said to her class, "I've learned lots of new swear words like blimmin' eck and flippin' eck," and so there's no. It's kind of scary in places, but it's quite cozy. What I call cozy folk horror, because it's about walking, talking scarecrows. It's set in a village in Kent, in England, at the beginning of the Second World War. So it's slightly spooky in places and gets quite dark towards the end. But yeah, there's nothing in there. There's no effing and jeffing or, no scenes of a sexual nature.
Yeah, and there's a cool young female lead in there. And I was going to say something else. No, forgotten. But yeah, have a look. It's a really great book. So
thank you.
I will carry on mining the
Please do.
Earth of Wisdom. So this is a big one that all of our contestants will be faced with. So like our contestants, you have 500 words to tell a Border Reaver inspired story. What story do you tell? Just in a nutshell.
Well, it's funny. I am, because Border Reavers, it's, I vaguely knew about them but didn't know very much. So as soon as you hear about them, to Wikipedia and you start looking it up. And the one thing I discovered was that Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, was descended from a Border Reaver. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, yeah, there's a story there. There's some kind of story there. One of his ancestors looking up at the moon or something, and then him looking down and seeing Scotland and the borders and what have you. So there's something there. That's probably the story I would tell.
Yeah. Lovely. And I think in your latest film, you've got red cap goblins in. Is that correct? Can I say that?
Yes, you can say that. Yeah, yeah.
And they're sort of
yeah.
linked in a way to William de Sewell had a red cap. I don't know if you. And anyway, it's kind of in that you could say in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when you start looking into mythology. Every culture has very similar myths. Like most cultures have a flood story. Most cultures have witches of some kind, and most cultures have kind of fairy folk and goblins and leprechauns, and they'll give them all sort of different names. So it's you try and find something that when you're writing a creature feature, which is what we were doing, and it's set very specifically on the west coast of Ireland, where they have leprechauns called the Far Darrig, which have red caps. But in sort of Irish culture, they're more pranksters, whereas I love the ultra violent red caps. So we've kind of combined the two for the film, which is great fun. And this film definitely not for kids unless you're a big horror fan. Lots of blood and gore in that one.
Oh, don't sneak the video cassette down at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's called Unwelcome. It's coming out with Warner Brothers, but
yes, next year hopefully next year. I think we're doing a few festivals later this year. They're working on the visual effects now. I saw some of the finished visual effects of the red caps in there, and it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the cast in it are amazing. Director's done an incredible job. I can't wait for people to see it. It's so much fun. It's a very it takes a lot of glee in its horrorness. We have a lot of fun with it, and by the end, I hope we've blown your mind a little bit. You'll come out of the cinema going, that's my plan.
Okay, so on to the a little bit more about the Bestseller Experiment podcast. So you co-host that podcast, the Bestseller Experiment podcast, with Mark DeVore. You also helped set up the Bestseller Academy. You're an editor. You do YouTube videos. You were a writing tournament judge. You're doing this interview. So it seems you have a limitless energy. And what inspires you to keep helping others with their writing when you're very busy, as it is?
I don't have limitless energy. Trust me, I don't. I need naps, regular naps, especially when you get to my age. I'm nearly 50. Well, people help me. People gave me advice completely freely, and they introduced me to people, and they gave me a leg up, and they opened doors for me. So it's only right that I do the same, and I enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy it. I mean, I get something out of it because I learned something just from talking to other writers like yourself. I always learn something. I always come away a little bit refreshed and inspired. So there's a selfish kind of, I get a little dopamine hit from that. So that's fun. But I just think, particularly, I come from a working class background. I mean, my parents were caretakers and cleaners. We didn't know anyone in the publishing industry, didn't know anyone in the film industry. So it seemed like a completely weird dream to me that I might ever be able to do anything like this. But little by little, you meet people who say, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, or I can help you with that, or why don't you try this? And then you start to accrue friends and peers. You start discovering your peers, people like you who are working their way up. And the only way I think you get anywhere in the creative industry is by helping other people. It could be something as simple as saying, hey, look, I'll read your book, give you some feedback if you read my book. And, and that's how it starts. And you start helping each other. And then before long, you start getting a little network of friends. And sooner or later, one of them will say, oh, let me introduce you to this publisher, or let me introduce you to this person here, or let me, maybe I can get you some work on a film set or something like that. So, it takes time. Obviously, some people, have a certain amount of privilege that gets them ahead of the queue, but, don't measure your success against that of others. Just, measure your own success on your own terms. And and if you ever, this is the thing. I mean, whenever I do interviews like this, or whenever I talk to writers who are up and coming, they go, well, I don't know anyone in publishing and I don't know anyone in film. And I say to them, look, well, you know me now, you know where I am. I've got a website. You can drop me a line. You can email me. You know, and people go, oh, blimey, you know, that's going to open the doors. But actually, you'd be astonished how few people actually ever follow up on that. And I could talk from my own experience, because when I was very, very young, this was back when I really wanted to act. A friend of mine worked in an edit suite, and upstairs was a writer-director called Vadim Jean, who had just written and directed a low-budget movie called Leon the Pig Farmer. And Vadim went on to make all those Sky TV Terry Pratchett adaptations, you know, The Hogfather and Colour of Magic and stuff like that. And this was long before then, and he called me, and I was out. My dad took a message. He said, this guy has called you. And I never called him back. I was scared. I was like, what do I say to him? What do I say? And I know there'll be people out there going, oh gosh, what do I say? What do I say? And it's just like, have a couple of questions. Just say the kind of questions we got here. You know, what's your tips? And I don't mind answering those questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Weirdly, years later, I bumped into Vadim when I was working at Orion Publishing, because Orion did the tie-in books. And I told him this, and he said, oh, you know, you should have called me. I've been happy to talk, because there are lots of people in this industry, the film industry, publishing industry, who, and it's as industries go, they are nice industries. There are always a few sharks, and you always hear about the bad ones, but generally they're nice people who want to help, who want to do well, want you to do well, who want to hear from diverse voices, from people whose voices who might not normally be heard. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Drop me a line, drop the podcast a line, you know, enter competitions like this. All of this stuff, it all inches you closer and closer to your goal, whatever that may be. You may want to make a movie, you might want to write a book, you might want to, my dream was always to be able to write for a living, which is what I'm doing now, you know, and it's taken me a long time to get here, longer than I thought, but I did get here because I never gave up, and I asked people for help, and they gave it.
And I think, I mean, in my own experience with the directing people to the podcast again, but particularly in that sense, Mark DeVoe, who is often does that sort of thing. You'll just sort of contact someone and, you know, helps out and asks for help. And I think, you know, in both of you, it's inspiring. And I found that myself in the writing community, even down in the bowels of Western Australia. There's not that many of us here, but people are more than happy to help out and meet up and things.
Yeah, DeVoe talks about, you know, he would write to his music heroes. He wrote to Tom Clancy, you know, who kids you might not know, who was one of the biggest selling authors on the planet in the sort of 80s and 90s, up there with Stephen King. And he got a reply. And people sound surprised. It's like, I bet Tom Clancy got a lot of letters, mostly from people telling him he was using the wrong helicopter or submarine in one of his books. But, you know, if you're an aspiring writer, I think a lot of us, you might not get a reply overnight. I think, you know, really big best-selling authors probably have to take a day aside to reply to their emails or whatever. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a reply, and it'll be an encouraging one. So don't be afraid to ask for advice.
All right, then. Let's have a look how many. Okay, we've got two left. Let's see if... Okay, yeah. All right. So you've achieved a lot as a writer, as we've heard. Where do you want to go from here? What are your sort of next dreams or hopes?
Well, I mean, you say I've achieved a lot. I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like I'm just getting warmed up, you know. So more films would be nice, more books would be nice, just more of the same, really. I don't have any. I am working on a TV show. I've spent 6 years developing a TV idea, which has just been picked up by one of the big streamers, but I'm not involved in the writing team. I'm only as a consultant because I don't have enough experience in that arena. And so I'm writing something now that's so personal to me as a TV idea that only I can write it. So I think a TV series with my, based on my own experiences, weirdly enough, going back to that first play, which was all about my camping holidays, it's almost a prequel to those. It's about me growing up as a kid. And that would be difficult. I know that's not easy. The thing with TV and film, so much of the decision making is with other people, and the stakes are that much higher because of big budgets and crews, and it's just expensive. So the odds of that happening quite slim, but that's something I'd like to get more experience in that arena. But then if that never happens, I've got novels that I've write, and that makes me happy. Though the novels are my happy place, because that's where I get to be me more than anywhere else. And just, on that couch there or that desk over there is where I write. And just coming into this room and writing every day makes me happier, than any job I've ever had. So as long as I can keep doing that, I do write for a living, but like most writers, I'm 6 months away from bankruptcy at all times. So it's one of these things where you're like, I have to get more work, I have to write more things, I have to get when your mortgage, and food on the table all relies on your writing, it tends to focus the mind a little bit more. You tend to finish stuff a lot more quickly than you ever used to. So yeah, that's yeah.
Well, if there's any
keep food on the table, that's the goal.
Lawn sharks out there watching, then Mark might be someone to get in touch with. Actually, it's not irrelevant, but it just made me think you should bring back the camping theatre production. My second favourite film is Nuts in May, if you've seen that film.
Oh, I love Nuts in May. Was a huge Mike Lee is such a huge influence on my writing. I mean, Nuts in May, weirdly, and you might get this when you see it, but Nuts in May actually influenced the horror movie Unwelcome that's coming out next year. That thing of male impotent rage is quite a big thing in that story. But also seeing Mike's films like A Life is Sweet, which watching that for the first time as a teenager and listening to the kind of conversations, that was like, that sounds just like my family. And I think that was the first time I'd ever heard like a working class family like that in a film. I love Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and all these big fancy films, but when you see yourself represented in film, you realize how important that is. Thinking, oh, I'm allowed to write stuff that sounds like my family. I mean, it's important for me in The Crowfolk that Faye, who's the protagonist, is her dad runs a pub. She's a working class girl who says "ain't in it" and stuff like that. I mean, it's 1940s England, and when you watch films from that period, a lot of the actors were trained and spoken, received pronunciation like this, very, very clipped tones, jolly good, yes. Whereas actually, when you watch a film, like there's a film called A Canterbury Tale by Powell and Pressburger, which use real people, and they don't speak like posh actors. They spoke like normal people, as they do around here in Kent, So it was important to me that she be kind of, a bit working class and a bit rough around the edges. And that's so much of the fun of writing about her. So again, it's that thing of finding your voice and getting your voice out there. It's one of the most important lessons for any writer.
Yeah. And on that evidence, I imagine you'll be picked up as an actor again by.
So the weird thing is, I am an extra in the film Unwelcome. There's a I won't say too much, but there's a scene in a pub, and I did have a line, and the line has been cut. So I've been cut out of my own movie, which I'm still hurt and wounded about. But anyway, at least I'm in it, I suppose. But yeah, no, I've given up on the acting. There came a point when I was sort of in my mid-30s, I'm never going to be Harrison Ford. It's never going to happen. So, concentrate on the writing.
Well, I was in a film down here as an extra, and I can be seen from about 1,000 paces when Sam Neill's driving towards this sheepyard, about 1,000 paces pointing into the distance, but nobody that's seen it has recognised it as me yet. So you have to get pretty close.
Is that Rams? Is that the film?
Yeah. That's in Mount Barker where I lived, just not far from here. I used to live.
Brilliant. I love Sam Neill. He's one of the good ones. He's definitely one of the good ones. And that's a film, because that's a remake of
Yeah,
I think it's a Swedish film, Norwegian film or something like that. So no, I'll watch him in anything. So yeah. Oh, I'll look out for you then.
Oh, good luck. $1 million if you. That's not funny. It's $1 million if you. Is that legal? I don't know. All right. Final question. So just a snappy one, and I'm giving you a chance to think about this. So just to name you, it's a hard question. Favorite book and favorite film, if you can manage that.
Oh well, this probably changes week to week. I mean, I think the book that opened my eyes was probably Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because it was fun and it was science fiction, and it combined those two things in a way that I had, as a 12-year-old kid in the 80s, I'd never really encountered before, and that just opened a whole world to me. Good Omens though as well. Good Omens is a book that I can read again and again. Anything that's, I mean, it's kind of that thing of it's funny and it's weird, which is kind of where I'm coming from. All of my stuff is a little bit funny and a little bit weird. Favorite film, I mean, Star Wars I saw on my 5th birthday, and I've never been the same since. I wanted to be a firefighter. We had a fire truck come to the school. I sat in the fire engine, put the hat on. I was going to be very, very clear path in like, this is what I wanted to do. And then I saw Star Wars, and I saw that Star Destroyer come over. I was like, oh, okay, how do I get into that? How do I be that? Which probably ruined me for life, because then I remember picking up a copy of the Star Wars novelization at a jumble sale, and it mentioned that there was a director, which meant there was a writer, and these people just didn't magically appear on the screen. There were people who made these things. So then I started reading all those making of books, the Close Encounters diary, the Jaws log, and became obsessed with how films were made and how stories were told. And what I recognized was that actually my family were very good storytellers. They would come home from work and just say, oh, you'll never guess what I saw today, and tell a really funny, good story. And so story is in the family bones. I mean, my Aunt Marion, who was a nun, she was the first one in the family to get a proper bestseller. She wrote a book called Dropping the Habit, about her life as a nun and how she walked away from that. And that was an Irish Times bestseller. So that was kind of inspirational. But so, it's, sorry, long-winded way of saying Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Star Wars. Basic.
I think I have to read that. I think 3 people now have said on this YouTube channel that Hitchhiker's Guide is one of their favorite books, and I've never read it, so I'll have to.
Well, it's one of those things. Any favorite, anything that, if it gets you at a particular age, if it gets you at an influential age, then it will instantly mean more to you. I mean, I remember going to see Blade Runner at a friend's birthday party when I was 12. And from the box on the VHS cassette, we were expecting Indiana Jones in space. It had Harrison Ford and androids. And it wasn't. It was this weird metaphysical investigation into identity. We were 12 at a birthday party going, what there? What? Did anyone understand? None of us, we knew it instinctively. I mean, there were like 3 of us who came away from that thinking, did we like that? I think we liked that. Then there was a Marvel Comics adaptation, which I read. Then I read the Philip K. Dick book, which is completely different. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Same themes, but different story. And then there was the director's cut. And so I've evolved and grown up with that film. So I have a deep, deep love of Blade Runner because it got me at the right age and I've grown up with it. Whereas if I show it to my kids now, they fall asleep. So it's so I think certain people of a certain age will have grown up with it. I mean, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a phenomenon, and multi-million copy bestseller. And it was just one of those things. I made friends through that. I remember going to secondary school and seeing other people reading it and just latching onto those people. I found my tribe, And that's one of the reasons it also means so much to me, because it's, I've made friends through it. So there'll be kids watching this who will have their own thing that is really meaningful to them, that will help them latch onto other people and make friends and find a community of their peers, and they'll all rise up together.
Hopefully, unless you're the only one that likes that book, in which case
there's 7 billion people on the planet. You'll find someone, and again, social media, you will find those people out there. There will be a group of people who will enjoy the same thing as you. And that this is one of the benefits of this sort of thing. There's a lot of negatives, but the benefits are that you can find people who love the stuff you love. I mean, my daughter is into kind of certain animes and books and graphic novels, and because of online communities and because of Comic-Cons and festivals, she's able to meet people who have the same passions that she does, which, whereas at my age, I would just sit and read my weird comic books and books on my own thinking, is there anyone else out there like me? So yeah, go hunting and find them. They're almost certainly. And if there isn't a group out there who loves the same thing as you, start one. Yeah. Your opportunity to start one, and then people will come to you. So if that's what you want.
Yeah. Oh, that's it's been great, Mark. I think we've learned a lot, and I think we'll have helped people entering the tournament to write a much a better story and be inspired, and maybe they'll make a career out of it. Unfortunately, my dog is looking at me through the window and expected to walk before it gets dark, so I'll have to go shortly. But it's been really great. Thank you for talking to us.
My absolute pleasure, and good luck to everyone taking part in the contest. I'm really looking forward to reading your stories and seeing what you come up with. And for a lot of you, this might be the first step on a much longer road. And good luck. And if you ever need any help, you know where I am. Just drop me a line, and if there's anything I can do to help you, then let's make it happen.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
My pleasure.